Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching another edition of Break the Fake, where we debunk fake news and combat false narratives. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and let's get rolling. Now imagine this. You make a satirical sketch about a fictional deputy where the protagonist heroically solves terrorism by firing a rocket launcher at all sorts of objects, and suddenly you're looking at 15 years in prison for illegally producing explosives. Of course, the producers didn't get thrown into the slammer for making fun of Russian politics or poking fun at the ruling party. No, Russia never cracked down on dissidents. The crime of those involved in the video was manufacturing explosives. Perhaps the satire in the video packs the explosive power of military-grade munitions.
Чего вы стоите беспонтово? Кроме меня некому решить этот вопрос.
По словам сотрудников полиции, отчитав их за нерасторопность, председатель заявил, что знает, как быстро и эффективно обезвредить опасный объект, после чего попытался уничтожить его из противотанкового гранатомета. Однако вместо сумки Виталий Наливкин случайно уничтожил агитационный щит партии «Единая Россия», который после прямого попадания кумулятивным боеприпасом прекратил свое существование. Вторая попытка поразить взрывоопасный объект на остановке также не увенчалась успехом.
Вы что, прикалываетесь или что?
После безуспешной серии попыток уничтожить цель из гранатомета было принято решение разминировать объект вручную. При детальном осмотре опасной сумки выяснилось, что в ней 25 килограммов китайской моркови.
Я не понял. Вы этого боялись?
Now, it's important to note that the filmmakers didn't actually use a rocket launcher or blow anything up in their sketch. The defense insists that there was no military weaponry involved whatsoever, but reality clearly has no bearing on the Russian legal system, where the mere suggestion of a humor can be weaponized against you. In fact, these charges didn't come until 2 years after the original hooliganism charges, which didn't really stick. So naturally, in true Russian judicial fashion, they've upped the ante. Why settle for a slap on the wrist when you can just throw in an accusation like manufacturing explosives? If this doesn't underline the absurdity of modern-day Russia, I don't know what does. The very idea that a parody video could lead to 15 years in prison for a couple of filmmakers is the kind of story that would make George Orwell blink in disbelief. Vasily Nabenzia, permanent representative of Russia at the UN Security Council, delivered what could only be described as an Olympic-level performance in the sport of whataboutism. According to him, the only reason the world hasn't figured out who blown up the Nord Stream pipeline is that the dastardly West, led by those Russophobic lunatics in Poland and the Baltic states, just doesn't want to know.
Госпожа председатель, хотели бы задать вопрос нашему французскому коллеге, обвиняющему нас в том, что мы настаиваем на термине «теракт» в отношении диверсии на северных потоках. Почему вы не обвиняете в том же самом канцлера ФРГ Шольца, который 14 сентября публично признал произошедшее террористическим актом? Особенно учитывая, сколь рьяно вы защищаете эффективность и беспристрастность немецкого расследования. Попытка ряда выступавших сегодня западных коллег провести параллели между подрывом северных потоков и нашим уничтожением инфраструктуры, связанной с военным потенциалом киевского режима, свидетельствует либо о стремлении сместить акценты с неудобного для них преступления, либо о полной безграмотности. Если расследование Германии опирается на такую же дилетантскую доказательную базу, то его исход абсолютно понятен. Не может быть никаких параллелей между украинским контекстом и сознательным уничтожением объекта международной энергетической.
Well, this isn't about logic, though. Now, this is classic Russian rhetoric. Deflect, distort, and deny, all while making vague threats about how no undersea infrastructure anywhere will be safe until Russia gets its way. Which, considering Russia's track record with shady underwater activity, is like a burglar threatening your house security system unless you let him investigate who broke into your neighbor's place. And let's not overlook that Nebenzia is essentially accusing the West of orchestrating the whole sabotage. Now, if only the West would listen to Russia's version of events, conveniently cleared of any involvement, naturally, everything would be just fine. North Korea and Russia, truly a match made in authoritarian heaven. Now, 6 North Korean officers losing their lives in Donetsk while fighting for Russia is the kind of dystopian plot twist that almost feels inevitable at this point. After all, Kim Jong-un's support for Russia's invasion of Ukraine as a defense of sovereignty and territorial integrity is rich, coming from a man whose country borders are about as close as his mind. It's almost comical how these two leaders, Putin and Kim, managed to find common ground mainly in rewriting the definition of sovereignty and security. They apparently believe that invading a sovereign nation and dragging other countries into your mess is somehow a noble act of self-defense. Who needs logic when you've got missiles, right? And now with North Korean officers dying in Ukraine, it is clear that Kim's full support for Russia isn't just words, it's boots on the ground. But let's not kid ourselves. This isn't about mutual respect or loyalty. It's about desperation. Both regimes are increasingly isolated, clinging to one another like sinking ships in the sea of international disdain. So yeah, the world might be complicated, but watching these two leaders rally around their shared delusions is disturbingly straightforward. Here's the age-old debate of how many devils fit on the head of a pin. In 2024, we've evolved that theological curiosity into something far more practical. How many Russians can fit into an elevator? Because if you've been on Russian social media lately, you know the answer might surprise you. In Novosibirsk, some poor soul decided to manually open a stuck elevator, and instead of finding a frustrated neighbor or maybe a stray cat, out comes a whole Romani camp. It's as if he stumbled upon the Russian version of a clown car with unexpected twist. Almost a football team spilling out of a tiny confined space. Now forget theology, folks. The real question for philosophers and architects alike is now, just how many Russians can you cram into an elevator before it becomes its own unique form of public transportation? And with that, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.